there are three things in life that you always remember. Number one, your first job. Number two, your first car. And number three, your first boyfriend or girlfriend. Believe me, you will always remember those because they are special. And no matter how many jobs, how many cars, how many partners you have in your life, you will always remember the first one with a lot of affection. My first job when I left university in Scotland was helping high school students find their first job when they graduated from high school. It was a nice job. You can imagine how great you feel when you match a young person with a job vacancy. You send them for an interview, and then a couple of days later they ring you up and they say, "Hey Rob, I got the job." That gives you a great feeling here. So today I want to speak to you about getting a job, keeping a job, moving up in that job, and progressing in your career. Now, the world of work now is extremely different to the world of work 30 years ago. Very, very different. Much more exciting. I've already spoken to about 6 people today who are doing jobs that simply didn't exist 30 years ago. And therefore, the world of work is much more varied, much more exciting. People are much more mobile than ever before, certainly more than 30 years ago. Many, many people now have their education in more than one country, and even more are running their careers in more than one country. We're mobile. You're mobile. Generation Y, the millennials, you are the most mobile generation ever to walk the earth. You do not feel necessarily the same kind of loyalty to the country of your birth than other people do. You feel it's fine to go and study overseas, to work overseas, and here we are in Lithuania, which is an outstanding example of a country where young people in particular feel mobile and do follow opportunities wherever they may lie. So the world of work has changed a lot. Nevertheless, in common with the world of work for young people 30 years ago, it's a competitive world. People, young people in particular, are competing with each other for that job, for that promotion. And that was the case 30 years ago, especially in my country where youth unemployment was coming along seriously for the first time. So it's a wonderful world. The jobs are there, the opportunities are there, but getting them is what I want to speak about this afternoon. Now, there's one huge difference between now and 30 years ago. There are 2 words that we use all the time now, which 30 years ago were never mentioned, and those words are online and offline. I'll come back to those words, but those young people from 30 years ago, all they had to think about was their offline person, because there was no such thing as an online personality. So the question I want to ask now is you. Are you human beings or are you human beings? I think I know the answer to that, but let me explain what I mean by that. Branding. Personal branding is what I want to talk about this afternoon. It's not entirely new. It's been around since the 1990s. But I want to speak about it. I want you to ask yourself if this is something you can profitably apply to yourself to help you be yourself and succeed in the very competitive world of work. Branding is nothing new. Here are just a few of the popular brands that almost everyone in the room will recognize. Product branding. It makes life easy. Can you imagine how shopping would be if there were no brands? We would spend 6 hours in the supermarket just getting the shopping for the week, reading every packet, reading every tin. What is it? What's in it? What are the advantages? What does it do? We don't need to do that because powerful brands like the ones here, like Beans, Heinz Beans, they spend a lot of money developing the brand, marketing the brand, and we're bombarded with their advertising, with our brand messages from the minute we can read and write. So when we go shopping, the brands help us to decide what we want. We kind of like them because they assure us of some kind of consistency. We buy McDonald's, maybe, because we know what to expect. We've had McDonald's before. We know what is the taste and what are the advantages. Later on, we buy a BMW because we've had one before. They work well, and it's a good brand and good quality. So brands do help us a lot, and one of the things that we expect from brands is that they should be consistent. So branding, it all started with this, cattle branding. This was in the time of the cowboys originally, where farmers had to brand, literally, their cows, their horses, with their own names so that the ownership of those cows and horses could be easily identified, and if they were stolen, then they could also be identified with the original owner. So this is where branding came from originally, literally using hot branding irons to mark our belongings as belonging to us. So as you can imagine, it must have been quite painful for those cows, for those horses, poor things, but also it creates a lot of smoke. The difference between this kind of branding and personal branding is there should be no smoke. On the contrary, it should be crystal clear from your personal brand, who are you? What are your qualities as a person? For employment, and I underline that, for employment, what kind of person are you? Let's look at how it happens. There are many definitions of personal branding, but I like this one because every word in this particular definition is important. It's an ongoing process. This is not something that you do and then forget about. Every day you go to work, every interaction with colleagues, with customers is part of your personal branding. And it's about establishing a prescribed image or impression in the minds of others. And that image is prescribed by you. One of the dicta of personal branding is if you don't decide on your brand, then someone else will. So this is about taking control of how other people perceive you, the opinion that they have with you. In fact, another nice definition of personal branding I've seen is that your personal brand is all that stuff that people say about you when you're not in the room. Now, you want that stuff to be positive, and so it begins with branding yourself. Developing your personal brand means really looking deeply and truthfully at yourself and saying, what is my brand? What am I? What kind of person am I? What are my talents? What can I do? And that's a very important word. What do I do? Not what do I like people to think I could do, but really what kind of person am I? Am I a creator? Am I a problem solver? Am I the go-to guy that people come to when they have an IT problem? Am I the person in my group of friends who is very good at pouring oil on troubled waters when there's any problem in the group? What are my talents, my skills, my hard skills, my soft skills? Really, it's sitting down with a pen and a piece of paper and listing your best qualities. That's getting close to establishing your brand. Think about it in terms of value, the value that you add to your colleagues, to the people who are in your association or buying products from you. What value do you add? Because if you're not sure about the value that you add, then other people won't be sure. They will not be sure. And if you're in a job and you're still not sure how you add value to that organization or that company, well, you better decide quickly. What do you bring to your employer? So the first stage is establishing your brand identity. What is it? Just in the same way that big companies take their cars, their computers, brands like TEDx, what value do they bring us? What do they bring us? Consistency, of course, is important. And that brings us to the second point, which is developing your brand's positioning. Because it's not enough just to have a brand. Now, it's the exciting bit. You need to tell the world. You need to show the world. Reinforce your brand. Companies call it brand equity. Brand equity is what you build up over the years. TEDx has a lot of brand equity because it's been around for some time, very positive image. People understand that if they go online and look at a TED Talk, they understand very clearly the benefits that they will get. What are the benefits that you bring? You need not only to identify them, but you need to demonstrate them in action. Now, there are a myriad of ways of developing your brand's positioning and promoting your brand. In fact, I would say almost everything you do, everything you say should be confirming your brand, reinforcing it, underlining it, and really consistently doing this. There should be no inconsistency at all. It comes down to everything that you do when you're with colleagues, when you're at work, when you're socializing with colleagues. And it comes down even to details like the way that you dress. Now, I know that it's not very fashionable to talk about what you wear, because these days everyone loves to wear whatever they want to wear. But there's a saying I like, and I'm sure you've heard it before, which is that every morning when you're going out, you should dress as if you're going out to meet your worst enemy. How do you want to look? You want to look great. It doesn't mean you're wearing brands and the most expensive clothing. It means you want to be confident in how you're dressing, that you've been mindful about it. You haven't just thrown on what happens to still be clean in your wardrobe. The other saying I like is that that one morning of the week when you decide, you know what, I'm not going to wash my hair this morning. There's nothing big happening today. I'm going to risk it. I'm just not going to wash my hair. Of course, that's the day when you bump into your ex in the street and you haven't washed your hair. Or guys, you've said, no, I'm okay, I won't shave today. That's when you meet your ex. So the identity must be reinforced. How you speak. Again, something unfashionable, politeness. You may think that people don't notice politeness, courtesy, but they do. They really do. And it's a quality that you should nurture in everything that you do. These little words, please and thank you, they count a lot. People notice them. People like to be thanked for those little services that you do for them. I like that other expression, which is that the person who is nice to you but who is nasty to the waiter, that's not a nice person. There's a lot of profound truth in that. So your manner, the way you speak, the things you say, the vocabulary, the dress, all these details, they are constantly underlining your brand and reinforcing it. Now, it gets exciting because when we wind back 30 years ago, as I told you, people had their personal brand, the person that they were. Your problem, everyone's problem now, is that we have two personae. We have our offline and now our online identity. Now, that's a challenge and an opportunity because everyone understands how your activity online, particularly with the social media, those activities can help you a lot in developing your brand, tweeting, blogging. You can even have a website. It's great. It's a wonderful way of promoting your brand, telling the world, reinforcing what you do. But of course, it's a double-edged sword as well, because everyone understands nowadays that increasingly employers can go online and they can see the kind of person that you are. They can read your tweets. They can maybe get onto your Facebook site if you haven't adjusted the privacy settings. So it's definitely worth thinking about what will they see if they go onto your Facebook site. The language that you use. Too many WTFs in your posts, a few too many empty vodka bottles hanging around, and maybe a little too much flesh exposed. You know, these days they will try to find out as much about you as possible before they even think of inviting you for an interview. So the online, the offline personae also need to be consistent. Your digital footprint is something which is part of you and will either reinforce or will destroy the brand that you're trying to promote. Now, a lot of people hear about personal branding and they say, oh, it sounds very selfish, it sounds like me, self-promotion. It isn't self-promotion. It should never be self-promotion. The most powerful, the most positive brands, personal brands, are those of people who do things for other people. So when you're thinking about your brand, avoid the me. Rather, think about actions, deeds. What do you do? How do you help other people? Are you an advisor, a mentor? Are you good at lifting people up when they fall down? People will remember your actions, and particularly your actions for others. So promote your brand, live your brand through doing things for other people. It's not me whatsoever. Your best brand will be what you do for other people. That's how you want to be remembered. That's the thing you want people to speak about when you are not in the room. So it's not self-promotion. And I'm going to leave you with this thought, which is neither is it all of you. Do not be mesmerized, do not be hypnotized by your personal brand. Spend a long time on it. It's worth it. It's your key to success. But never forget that you are bigger than your brand. Your brand is for employment. It's for the job. There's another you, I hope. There should be another you. Don't be hypnotized by your brand. Don't spend all your time online developing it, tweaking it, because you are bigger than your brand. You have many more dimensions to yourself than your personal brand, or you should have. Your whole emotional development, your cultural self, perhaps your spiritual development. These are vital parts of you. Your personal brand is for work. Work is not all of your life, or it should not be. Your generation should not make the same mistake as many of your parents' generation, which was getting the work-life balance completely out of balance. So, personal branding, use it, play with it, make it work for you. But remember, there is another you, many people would say a more important you, that you should never lose touch with. So play with branding, have fun, but remember, the real you is much bigger, much crazier, much funnier, much weirder, much more important. Thank you very much indeed.